Welcome, folks, to The Twist. I'm Erika Grey.
And good afternoon from the Big Apple, New York, New York, in front of the Public Library of the City of New York. This is Don Pravda speaking.
And today we're going to talk about Kanye West, who I would like to name Anti-Semite of the Year or Anti-Semite of the Month. What do you have to say on his comments, Don?
We could include Anti-Semite of the Decade.
Of the decade.
I have to acknowledge, Erika, that I've never posted signs in front of the highway about anti-Semitism. So the West, Mr. West and the West, providing and why not use white guys to make a Nazi salute? I guess you couldn't get your friends, Mr. West. You had to hire some people.
What's, I think, so shocking about this? Now, we all know that Kanye West is not wrapped too tight. I mean, I think that's accepted public opinion, even among his listeners. But it's the idea that so many young people listen to him. And he's taking young people that are in a generation right now where you've got increased violence, increased crime, kids doing things that are just unheard of, and now you're filling their minds with hate against the Jews. And I think this is so criminal in today's society when you have an individual like this who is looked up to, who is considered a leader, even though he's not wrapped too tight. It's pretty accepted that the elevator doesn't go to the top floor in his head. Even though that, I mean, what he's doing is just unbelievably dangerous.
And there's precedence for inciting hatred against others. He is inciting hatred, he's inciting ugliness, and he's providing a forum for loathing and disgust. And that's why we're here today, Erika.
Yes, to talk about this. This is a very serious topic. And also, the statements that he's making is almost a version of the protocols of the elders of Zion. Jews run all these industries. When he stated that there's not a celebrity that doesn't have a contract, that's, it's just this horrific evil. I mean, it's pure evil, Don, and it's pure evil against your people.
Yes.
And against a people. And in today's society, this shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be tolerated. It should be criminal. And I think he is really, this should be penalized really legally. What he's stating is just unbelievable. This idea of the Jews as being this evil people and this hatred, and actually he had a statement inciting violence against the Jews.
Absolutely, it's very dangerous stuff, and the Jewish community is very concerned about this, but also we have a lot of proponents. There's people who are rooting for the Jewish people, the evangelical movement, and let me tell you, I have devoted part of my life for brotherhood and good relationships between blacks and Jews. I was a director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center in Florida, and I constantly was meeting with people from churches and forming positive relationships. This puts a dent into my life. It puts a dent into relationships between two eminent minorities, and we are minorities as Jews. We're a very small number of people. Our group, the Jewish people and people of color. I would also emphasize that I had a class at Columbia University. My professor was one of Martin Luther King's attorneys, and I have tried to build positive relationships, and this is a terrible step backwards for relationships between esteemed minorities in this country, both of which have ancestries to slavery, which is a truly great evil.
Yes, absolutely, a truly great evil. But also, the statements he's making, I'd like to do the Kanye West challenge, which is challenge him to provide evidence, because he can't provide evidence. He's talking about threats of violence. In today's day and age where you can record everything, you can film it on your smartphone, where is his evidence? Where are his charges? If that's the case, why are there not charges if somebody's threatening him? But it's these kinds of statements. They're almost taken up by these statements are taken up by the ignorant. And ignorant people who don't think for themselves, who rely on emotions or conspiracies, tend to take these and they run with it, and they run with it in the direction of hatred, and eventually this leads to violence. His statements lead to violence. You get some listener who's listening to his music, who puts him on a pedestal and believes this now as gospel, and now acts on it at a Jewish synagogue. And this kind of hate, that's another thing. He's stating that he's born again. I'm born again Christian. I'm an evangelical. Want no part of this person. This is against everything our scriptures teach.
That's right.
What he is teaching. This is lunatic fringe. There's a song done, Lunatic Fringe. Kanye West is lunatic fringe, and his beliefs are lunatic fringe.
Or if in fact he really believes in this cause, I remember a name from my boyhood, George Lincoln Rockwell. He was the director of the American Nazi Party, but perhaps he could join this organization. They'd probably have their first black member in the American Nazi Party. And so take a trip, Kanye, to Nebraska and introduce yourself and go on record as you are with a new group that should embrace you.
Well, actually, Jewish organizations were reaching out. I know one did, and it was sad that all they got in response was more anti-Semitic remarks and threats in extending an invitation to Kanye. So this is now any intellectual discussion, any reasoning, it's all out the window. This is just pure dogmatic hatred.
And I want to emphasize, we're hurting when black people are shot to death in Buffalo, New York, when children are shot in schools. We ache, and I ache, and mourn these children and these young people. And don't forget, it's not a long time ago that Jewish people were murdered in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania at a synagogue, and in California, in the general area of San Diego. And this is very recently. We want this to cease. We don't want it to begin. And we hurt from crime and murder and violence and blood. We feel ache from this, and we don't want this to happen again. So, sir, do not promote this hatred and anguish. It's wrong for America.
And anybody listening to this broadcast, you need to do something about this. You need to contact somebody within your Congress or Senate. This needs to be made a crime. This is very serious stuff against a people, a hatred against other human beings that defies human reasoning, it defies logic. The thoughts, the conspiracies, the equating Jews with evil and thinking that they're justified in whatever actions they may take. I mean, what Kanye West is doing because of his position in the music industry is just absolutely criminal and should be punished as a hate crime. What do you think on that?
Well, as a hate crime, if in fact a crime is committed, and this leads to violence.
But the crime is committed, Don.
Well,
he's in a position of leadership. Anybody in that kind of position who has as many followers and fans as he does, where young people are looking to him as a role model. I mean, let's face it, if a lawyer commits a crime, he's held to a higher standard. And there's individuals in the law who, even a small infraction, but this is major in today's climate, in a climate where you have shootings taking place on a regular basis. This is criminal, what he's doing, because of his position, because of the amount of people that listen to him, and what could potentially come of this, I think is criminal, Don, without the criminal act happening.
An intellectual crime. But of course, we are aware in America is a free and open culture. There is freedom of speech. He is exercising that, but in the most negative possible way in times like this, which are very dangerous. And in a civilization that seems on the brink of changing, we do not want this violence. We do not want school shootings. We don't want synagogue shootings. We don't want people killed in their church, in a black church, or a white church, or a Protestant church, a Catholic church. We want people to enjoy their lives.
You
prosper.
Have a really good point, Don, about the freedom of speech.
Okay. Yes.
Now, that's a really great topic. I know that you have the European Union actually it's in its Digital Services Act. Now the social networks are to act as publishers to make sure that certain information, they're policing it that way, by the way. They're policing it through that act so that if a statement is not factual, then the social networks need to take it down. And that way you would eliminate some of these statements that might end up being shared. I'm not sure if it would apply to Kanye West, but I know that it's being addressed on different levels. And then those networks that don't take it down are fined heavily. But it's to prevent this kind of thing. So I'm not sure, like what Twitter or Facebook, I'm not sure what they're doing in this as he's sharing this sort of thing. I know that YouTube also takes down the hate speech. So some of it, Don, I think is taken care of that way. And then you have those who are saying that that's even violating freedom of speech, and that is not fair because people who feel not being heard. But so I guess what I'm saying is that it is starting to happen, some people through that avenue. But I think that when a person is in a position of leadership like this, and even though he is a whack job, and we know he is still looked at as a leader among many youth. And so for him to come out with hate speech, let's face it, this is hate speech, it's hate
Yes,
talk. It is criminal because he should be held to a higher standard. And I think that anybody in those kinds of positions should be held to a higher standard. So what's your thoughts on that and free speech?
Well,
does free speech allow somebody to incite hatred against another human being?
Well, if something happens soon, or they feel they've been inspired by an anti-Semite like this, and then realistically, we don't want to go to funerals. We want to go to happy occasions. We want to go to events with brotherhood, purpose, and meaning. We want Christians and Jews and Muslims to converge together and be positive. There's so much opportunity in America. And may I also add, Kanye West has done very well in this country. He's a success in the United States of America. And wouldn't it be better if he would offer kindness, resolution, and perhaps even producing maybe a Christian song that he feels positive about, rather than this.
I don't think we want his Christian song. I'm sorry, Don.
Maybe
He's
we don't want
lunatic
it.
fringe. He's what's wrong. He is going to give evangelicals a bad image. We don't need we don't need it. What he's coming out with is just pure evil. It's against our scriptures. And
Good.
also he's trying to justify it by basically saying that he is Jewish, which, let's say, I mean, it just doesn't even make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if I were to talk about, okay, I'm a woman, and now I'm going to incite violence against women, and I say, well, I can do this because I'm a woman. I mean, that doesn't make any sense either. There's no logic in that. Is there logic? Any logic in that? In what he's doing?
Well, how about positive energy? How about good deeds? How about observing the 10 Commandments? How about more trust and love?
How about he comes out publicly and says, look, I lost my mind,
Right.
and please forgive me.
Or please forgive
like,
me.
what was I thinking?
Be a big man and apologize. How about this, sir? Put out some banners on the highway. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. This was wrong. We want brotherhood. That's the challenge we offer today. Apologize. Ask for forgiveness.
Yes, the Kanye
Be
West challenge.
Contrite. Offer thanks to the United States of America, which has made you a very wealthy and successful man.
Yes, and now he's becoming part of the problem in America, because America right now is being destroyed on several levels. Well, we talk about America's foreign policy, so its own foreign policy, but we also talk about the dollar. And let's look at crime in the United States. And he is feeding this, because let's face it, with that kind of talk, he's feeding hatred, and he's feeding someone who's going to commit a violent act. And so he's now part of the problem. He's part of the hatred, and he's part of the, go ahead.
The propaganda machine. There would be no Nazism except they had a powerful propaganda machine perpetuated to Nazi youth, by the way, and to the people of Germany and Austria. So in the span of only 12 years, a man like Hitler went to a nobody who never worked a day in his life at a regular job to the Chancellor of Germany. And wasn't that amazing? Herr Hitler never became a citizen of Germany. He was not from there. He was from Austria. So he could be a window of hate. He can be a window of loathing. And we'll be watching this story in weeks to come. It's not over.
But
It's just beginning.
Yes, and we invite you to the Conway Challenge, which is we're inviting him to apologize,
Right.
to make amends, to reverse this course, and we're here to speak out against it and say this is now part of the problem in America, part of what's lending to America's decline. This should not be happening. And also his statements, we haven't really gone into the statements, but we're going to be covering anti-Semitism and some of the absurd, and let me tell you, there's no other way to describe it but absurd beliefs of the anti-Semites and what they actually believe as truth. And at the end of the day, it's just all about hatred. It's just a hatred, and it's a hatred that's directed at a people who don't deserve it.
Absolutely.
And no people should deserve it. And it is so against the scriptures. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's just so against the scriptures. There's no good that comes out of it. No good that comes out of those actions.
And we welcome the black church community to speak out against him.
Yes.
We welcome the thoughts of reverends around the United States who have pulpits,
Yes.
and the citizens who go to church.
There's a lot of great Africans in America who are part of churches, who are very spiritual, and who I know will decry this. And also we call on the African community in the United States to speak up against this kind of talk, this hatred on the part of this individual. And again, he's not viewed as being wrapped too tight, but it's the idea that so many listen to him, and he's got those kinds of numbers,
right,
and he's got a following, that even despite his mental health issues, he is held to a higher standard just by virtue of his position.
And let me tell you, all it takes is a depressed teenager with a gun to commit horrific crimes. He could be the one influencing very young people in the worst possible way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And not only that, he's planting seeds. He's planting the seeds in the minds of people who may mistreat Jews. Well, in other words, it will turn into actions
right,
that we may not even realize, stories that may not make major headlines, but will affect the lives of people and cause them great distress and unhappiness. And so this is very serious stuff.
Absolutely.
Very serious stuff.
So I think we can agree, let our people come together. The black community and the Jewish community, the Jewish people marched in droves for Dr. Martin Luther King and actually died in the civil rights community. And let's not forget who killed them, those who marched for Dr. King. The KKK is who killed these wonderful young people who protested in the name of freedom and liberty.
So, in conclusion, we're really speaking out against this. We're the Conway Challenge, him to make an apology, a public apology, reverse this course. And I guess that's it for today. Is there any other final words from you, Don?
I'm going to say shalom, shalom, shalom. We offer the peace branch. We offer positive thoughts. And goodbye.
And if you don't subscribe to The Twist, hit that subscribe button.